The doorbell face tag I never approved. Our doorbell learned a trick it never asked permission for. At 6:41 p.m., while I was chopping onions like a person trying to keep his fingers and his day, the chime did its cheerful little throat clear, and the app banner slid over my lock screen. Recognized visitor. Theo, welcome back. I don't have a Theo. Not in this house. We disabled familiar faces the week the camera started insisting our mail carrier was my cousin. But there it was, blue confetti, a small party thrown by a machine for a man my life had no reason to celebrate. I wiped my hands, thumbed the alert open, and watched the tiny clip. A shoulder you could put on a billboard, a jaw that had been taught manners, a half-profile the algorithm had decided belonged to a name it remembered from somewhere. Then my own front door, the brass I polish when I want to believe in maintenance, opening into the hallway's clean light. It wasn't live. The bell had pulled it from the last visit, whatever that meant to software that calls everything presence. The timestamp tucked under the clip said yesterday, one of those words that manages to be both precise and infuriating. Mara was studio late, her hyphen for eat without me. I'm making the room promise and the promise keep itself. She's a designer who makes light and time shake hands. I'm a sound person. I teach walls to admit they've always been listening. We built our life out of rooms, and rooms, like machines, love to report what they've witnessed without learning how to hold anything. I could have called and asked her to pronounce things. I could have stood on the porch and smoked a cigarette I don't allow myself. Instead, I tapped the clip again and watched the doorbell put flourishes on a lie it couldn't know was a lie. Welcome back, Theo. It wrote in a friendly font, because that's what hospitality does when you ask it to keep secrets. I stood a second in the doorway like a witness late to his own trial. Then I did the uncinematic thing. I went back to the stove, turned the flame down because onions prefer patience, and waited for my house to tell me what kind of scene I was about to be in. The lock turned at 8:12. The hallway light slipped under the door like a reporter. Mara stepped in with hair pinned, cheeks the color you get when you've been arguing with a room that thinks it knows you better than you know yourself. She kicked off her shoes, saw my face, and did that small, honest thing I married her for. She came close without negotiating the distance first. You saw it, she said. Recognized visitor, I said, setting the phone on the counter so the cheerful banner could continue to humiliate us. Welcome back. She leaned her hip to mine and pressed her palms to the edge of the island, grounding herself on wood that has never lied. Kitchen or small room? She asked. The small room is where we store the ugly lamp, the decent rug, and most of our bravery. The kitchen is where we keep knives and mercy. Here, I said, let the refrigerator be a witness. She nodded, turned the lamp above the table down one notch like she was dimming the room for an honest monologue, and looked at me as if she could move furniture with her eyes if she had to. He came to return a hard drive, she said. I told him to leave it on the mat. He insisted on handing it to a person because he's allergic to the idea of not being seen. I opened the door because I wanted to prove I could open it without turning into the person I don't like. And the doorbell liked his face, I said. The doorbell likes any pattern it can memorize, she said. Yesterday, he started to say the sentence men say to feel like good men. I don't want to put you in a difficult position, and I kissed him once to interrupt the rest of it. It wasn't good. It tasted like someone else's idea of me. He left. I ate crackers in the hallway to make the machine smell like carbohydrates instead of regret. The camera decided anyone who carries shoulders like that must be a regular, so it named him. What did you want? I asked, and let the question settle in the space between our chests. To see if the version of me who says yes just to prove my mouth works without my brain is dead, she said. She is. She's quieter than last year. She can be negotiated with. She doesn't get a key. The onions had gone translucent without burning. It felt important to notice that. "Do you want him?" I said, making the word want as friendly to the truth as I could. "No," she said. "I want 5 minutes where nothing needs me to keep the air from falling." He impersonates that feeling. You are that feeling in this room, even when we're tired. We stood a while, each of us respecting the other's wrists like we were thinking about pulse and not knives. Then I reached for the drawer where we keep our better paper, the back of a takeout menu that has become our constitution. I uncapped the pen that lives in the sugar bowl. "Truth before recognition," I wrote. Mara exhaled in the small, relieved way she does when she remembers we have rituals that make us more useful than rooms. "If a device learns a face," she said, "we say the name in here before the internet does." She added it beneath my line. I wrote, "If you think you must kiss someone to learn you don't want them, tell me before your mouth does field research." She underlined "tell" twice, which felt like love and also like we had both earned a scolding. "Storm or quiet?" she asked, her voice at the place between plea and promise. "Quiet," I said, "then weather." We ate pasta standing up by the sink because dishes hate speeches. After, she stepped close and set her mouth to that place below my ear where grammar resigns. I let my hands do what hands have learned here. Hold her in the shape of a person who dreams better when gravity has help. She climbed onto the counter with the mechanical grace of someone who builds hardware and the heat of someone who refuses to make spectacle a requirement for honesty. We were careful because we like having neighbors. We were greedy because yes is a resource, and this is what we spend it on. We stopped before we tried to make the room pay us for being brave. We breathed same air until the lamp forgave us. In the morning, the doorbell app asked me to confirm its new wisdom. "Is this Theo?" it prompted, helpful as a friend who ruins parties. Mara stood behind me at the counter, hair a mess you only get when you sleep beside an apology that paid in full. She read the prompt and said, "No, that is my mistake wearing a person." I tapped no with more tenderness than the gesture deserved. Work pretended everything was normal. I made a room at the museum sound like a ship without water. Mara tuned an installation so the wall seemed to blush only for people who didn't expect it. At lunch, I walked past the Argyle for no reason except to discover there was no reason. The sidewalk remembered yesterday and didn't trust itself to have an opinion. 2 days later, the doorbell got bored and tried a new trick. "Recognized visitor, Owen," it announced, printing my own name under a neighbor's face who looks nothing like me. I laughed in the doorway alone like a person who had finally decided to be kind to his ribs. The machine wanted to be helpful. It was practicing. Practice is ugly. It also saves lives. We kept getting better at being boring. This is not a headline. It is a victory. When 1:17 a.m. arrived with that particular itching at the back of the skull, Mara pressed my hand at the notch between her shoulder blades and said, "Quiet," and our bodies believed us. When I wanted noise, I said storm, and we made the room do weather without breaking anything delicate. Our rule sheet gained a new line every few days, some ridiculous, some necessary. "If a sponsor says after hours, the answer is boardroom," she wrote. I added, "If the doorbell names someone, we name each other better." Of course, the city is petty. We saw him again, Theo, in a lobby pretending to be Patience. He had the humility of a man rehearsing it because the director told him his first take was unwatchable. He nodded at both of us with the respect people who are learning develop when it dawns on them they aren't the protagonist. He said to Mara, "Light looks better when it isn't trying to prove it isn't lying." She said, "You too." and it was simultaneously mean and generous, which is how you cure things in a city like ours. He didn't come to our door again. The doorbell learned to be more cautious with names. The camera stopped making confetti out of our hallway. And still, sometimes at 5:08 p.m. or 11:32 a.m., I would look at the app and the thumbnail would offer me a stranger with my name under him, and I would laugh because machines are better at being wrong than people are. One night, months after we taped Truth Before Recognition to the fridge with a magnet shaped like an orange, the doorbell pinged while we were in the small room sitting too close beside the ugly lamp. "Recognized visitor, Owen," it said again, and then 2 seconds later, "Recognized visitor, Mara." We looked at each other and then at the door and decided to bring the house in on the joke. We walked to the hallway together. I waved at the camera. Mara waved. The doorbell app dutifully captured two people who belonged in the frame and asked me to confirm. "Is this you?" it prompted, comically earnest. I tapped yes twice so hard I almost broke my screen. We ate late that night. Nothing fancy, toast, jam, the last of the stupid basil we keep trying to grow on the sill. Mara touched my wrist while we chewed and said, "Talk to me." I did. I told her about the sound a room makes when it learns it's going to be trusted again. She told me about the color light turns when you stop asking it to cheat. We kissed not because we were trying to fix anything, but because kissing is how we like to be right. It would be clean if I could say the device never misnamed anyone again. It would be a lie. Last week it pinged while we were both within arm's reach of its uncomplicated eye. "Recognized visitor, unknown." I nearly applauded. We let it try again and it did not correct itself. We went back to the small room and wrote a rule that didn't deserve to be funny and was: if the doorbell says unknown, we assume it's us. 2 nights ago, the bell chimed and my watch tapped my wrist because habits are expensive to break. "Recognized visitor, welcome home," it said, eschewing names as if it had finally learned something about discretion. The clip showed the two of us tangled at the threshold, Mara holding my face with both hands like a person who refuses to ruin an evening with good behavior. It asked me nothing. It simply archived evidence that we have learned to arrive. We still get ads for better cameras. We still carry a little animal inside our ribs that wants to perform the kind of pain that makes people feel important. But the ugly lamp has started to look beautiful in the specific way honesty is. Hard to decorate, impossible to counterfeit. Our rule sheet has gravy on it and forgiveness written in handwriting that makes sponsors fix their posture over email. Sometimes I open the doorbell app first thing in the morning before coffee and stare at our own faces, frozen in that stupid fisheye, and wait to see what the machine will call us. "Recognized visitor, Owen," it says. Then, "Recognized visitor, Mara." Then nothing. Then the hallway becomes just a hallway again. I put the phone face down and go to the stove and set a pan over a flame because breakfast, like marriage, is a thing you build one small heat at a time. Last night, Mara set her mouth to my collarbone and murmured, not because she thought I needed to hear it, but because she likes the way words feel when they are true. "Don't start without me." I said, "Then come here," and she did. And somewhere the camera decided to keep its opinion to itself. And we practiced the only kind of intrigue I still want any skill at, the kind where two people decide to make a room believe in them again. We stopped when stopping meant we could laugh at ourselves while still wanting, and we fell asleep with the door locked, the app quiet, the wrong names erased, the right ones pronounced out loud, and for once not needing to be recognized by anything but the bodies that own them.